Welcome to Connected Conversations. I am Elena Petrova, founder and CEO of Adastra Inc. Tune in as we share inspiring stories, connect with local heroes, and discover solutions that uplift us. Welcome to Connected Conversations with Elena Petrova, and today I have Julia Risso Villani, and we are in Buenos Aires. We have Gabriel here, who is going to be helping us with interpretation. Thank you very much, Gabriel. And Julia, welcome. Julia is leader of the community that we are going to be talking today. I'm very excited because, again, Connected Conversation is the podcast where we meet with the community leaders and we talk about challenges and positive impact that those leaders bring to our communities. I was looking at all the work that Julia, you have done within your communities, including the book that you wrote. And today I would really like to explore your work, the challenges that Argentinian communities have been going through. And I'm sure there is a lot of positive impact and also a lot of good things that we are looking forward to see with the work that you are doing. So let's start. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you for the invitation. My job is basically to talk about something that wasn't talked about during my childhood. What it means to live with a disability. I talk about our lives, those of us who have lived with disabilities since birth, and those who acquired them later in life. I suffered a lot from the consequences of not talking about this, not talking about disability. And now I speak up, and I insist again and again on the issue of accessibility and on the need to build a more loving world for those of us with bodies or minds that don't fit into the version of normal we're constantly being shown.
And thank you very much for doing that, because diversity and inclusion is part of the community that we need to grow today. I come from US, and you probably see on the news that diversity and inclusion is the subject matter that we struggle to keep in our conversations today. And that's why I'm very excited to see that this is something that you work on. What does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
I don't really like the word inclusion. I try not to use it. I try to set it aside. And not because I dislike what it means, but because I think we need to move forward and find another word that better represents us, people with disabilities. Inclusion, it implies that there is someone we give power to, and someone whom the system gives power to include others. So why should we accept that there are already people who are left outside by default? Some time ago, I was interviewed by BBC News. And the interview was titled, "I don't like the word inclusion." I believe we need to focus on finding another word, that we should aim for coexistence. Because if I'm already in the world, why do they have to include me? One thing is to be included in the job market, for example, which is something that excludes many of us with disabilities. But another thing is inclusion in everyday life. If we are already there, we are already a part of it. What happens is that we have to think the opposite. Why do so many people pretend not to see us? Because many people make a big effort not to see us. not to see that people with physical diversities are part of everyday life. So I believe the word inclusion needs to be replaced. Many people don't like this way of thinking. A lot of people don't like it. But, well, I try to explain that it's because of this issue. There's always someone who has the power to include. Well, we need to start balancing that scale a bit better.
That is a very interesting perspective, and thank you for sharing that. To you, then, have you thought about? I know that you wrote a book, and we will go over the conversation about it. How do you have a suggestion how you would like to change the way to, maybe not a word, but look at, I'm thinking it through, to be completely honest with you, because yes, you're right. Everybody is already a part of the. Let's go back and take a look at the community. What community means to you? Because then we're all part of different communities, right? And so if we're talking about the fact that maybe inclusivity doesn't need to happen because you're right, we are already here. We are a part of this world, right? So who needs to include us if we are already part of it? That is a very good point. Then now let's take a look at what community then is to us, to you, to me, because we might look at this differently.
That's it, coexistence. I believe that community, as most people understand it today, is built on an idea of normality. And instead of debating inclusion, I think we need to question the fact that community itself has become a standard of normality. It's like we're all expected to conform to a certain idea of normality. In fact, many of the factors that oppress us and push us away from the community, people with physical disabilities, neurodivergent people, I mean, also fat people, black people, and racialized people. There are many factors that push these people away because they don't conform to that so-called standard of normality. I think that's the heart of the issue. We need to rethink the foundations that hold up the idea of community. I don't know. Today, for example, we see a lot of disregard for older people, for the elderly, and even for children. So I believe that the idea of normality is deeply tied to the idea of productivity. I think that's what we need to rethink. It's as if people only matter as long as they produce, as long as they're within a productive age range. And I believe that's something we can review. Each person matters for who they are, not for what they can do. Each person simply is, and just by being, they already have value. But I think that the way community works today, people are valued based on what they can do. And in fact, that's what we as activists or people who fight for this cause call ableism.
When we talk about the community, in your opinion, what is the role of the community today?
It's hard to think about what community really means, especially when we live in a community so marked by hierarchy. I think that ideally, community would mean living together without hierarchy, living together with as little hierarchy as possible. The thing is that we are so labeled. We have so many labels, human beings, so many names that this person belongs to, which I believe would be a community, living without hierarchy. To me, that feels essential. I don't know if it's coming across clearly.
How do you think we can? How do you think we can start moving towards this? This idea of the world that you are describing. What do you think is on the way right now?
It's hard to value people for who they are and not for what they represent. I think that would mean a real shift, a change of era, a change that maybe we won't get to see. Because I think it's deeply tied to the idea of productivity. Deeply tied to the idea of productivity. Let me give you an example. The fact that 8 out of 10 of those of us with disabilities are unemployed or don't have formal jobs reflects how society values people based on their productivity, based on their capacity to produce. I believe we'll move forward. I believe we'll move toward a society without hierarchies only when we all start to recognize that certain kinds of diversity can happen to anyone at any time. No one is exempt from acquiring a disability. No one is spared. Even if we'd rather not have one, no one is spared. I always used to ask myself, why me? But really, the question is, why not? These things happen. So I think that when we as a society and as a community understand that those who are different aren't others, aren't people on the outside, they are here. They are a part of it. And I think society as a community has lost the ability to realize that we all have a big responsibility to make them part of it, to make them feel part of it, to coexist. I think we forget what community really means when we stop caring. When we stop caring about other people's timing, when we stop caring about accessibility. How many cars do we see blocking ramps on the street? How often do people with disabilities get denied priority in public transportation? People don't give up their seats. There are so many things we realize we've forgotten. That responsibility is collective.
Yes, and thank you for bringing it to the discussion. What do you think, as a community here in Argentina and globally, in your opinion, what would be the first step towards, I would say, no, I'm looking for the right word, because it wouldn't be fixing, but towards improving the world in your view?
It would be a great responsibility. And I believe there are many people who try every day. I think the first step is realizing and truly understanding that we're not alone. I believe that there are many people who think they are, people who think they live alone without a sense of community. I think there are many people who believe that. And especially if they think they're not alone, they assume their reality is the same as everyone else's. And those who are different might be judged for it. I think we need to stop always judging those who do things differently from us. I think that's essential. It's very important. And then it's about starting to think, but not just think, actually put into action the idea that some people have different timing than ours, that some people have different ways of doing things than we do. I also think, and I insist on this, I say it over and over about this whole idea of normality. How many things we do in our daily lives that respond to that idea of normality? I always recommend this. Well, why don't we do things differently? I work a lot with teachers. In fact, I'm a teacher myself, and I also train them. Generally, when teachers have a student with a disability, they come terrified, full of fear, wondering, how am I going to help them learn? How will I manage? And I tell them, first, stop the fear, then think. Why don't you think the same way about your other 30 students? Why don't you think the same way about the others? And don't plan the class just for the one with a supposed difficulty. Think of it as a group. And maybe the things you're going to do for that person with a disability are actually things you do for everyone. If we start generalizing a bit and stop singling out the person who has the difficulty, things begin to change. The outcome is different.
Each person has a purpose, to your point, because that's what I absolutely agree with you. And again, celebrating diversity and how each person is different, I think that's the classroom experience. Going back to your students, I think that's, in my opinion, agreeing with you that probably the first step towards improving the world. And do you see this happening today in Argentina, in schools in particular?
No, honestly, I don't see it happening yet because we're still very afraid of disability. We're still very afraid of diversity in general. It's not just about disability. I think there's a lot of fear in schools about anyone who might step outside. And again, I come back to this word, normality, because schools, and I imagine this is also true in the US, the education system is still quite static. Students are expected to sit and face a board for 4 hours. 4, 6, even 8, depending on how long they're at school. And while this is something that should be analyzed in more depth, and maybe I'm not the most qualified person to do that, what I do see is that we're dealing with a system that should already be under discussion, a system that needs to start changing. Because what happens then? There are so many people who just can't handle sitting for 4 hours staring at a board. And with all the technology we have at our fingertips today, writing in a notebook might already feel outdated. Maybe it's time to question that too. It's no longer appealing, it's just not engaging. For a student, it's much more entertaining to stay at home watching TikTok or scrolling through Instagram than to sit and write by hand in a notebook. And yet, we're still doing it. We're still holding on to that ritual. of the notebook, the school supplies, I think that needs to start being dismantled. At least that's how I see it. Especially because when we talk about diversity today, we're seeing more and more people struggling with attention, with simply being present and focused. I think that's a very real issue of our time. And we need to take a closer look at what we're doing to see how we can support those people instead of harming them or pushing them out of the system. In response to your initial question, I think the focus is wrongly placed on the problem, the so-called problem. And I'll say it again. The work should focus on the group, not on the person who is considered different. I think the emphasis should be on the collective. But that approach hasn't made its way into classrooms.
Agreed. And at the same time, I think in general, as a society, we should probably accept and celebrate any difference and take us as we are, right? Because again, going to your point that we are here and we all have purpose. And that's something that we need to accept. I'm also wondering whether education on a system level would be, because you're a teacher, and if we give to our society more education, would it make a shift in how we as a community, as a society, look at this issue in general that we are facing today? Because again, to me, everything starts with education.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think it starts with teaching that our lives are not a tragedy and that no one's life is a tragedy just because they're seen as different. I make big effort to show that. But because truly my life is not a tragedy, but there are so many people I know who show in one way or another that they would do anything not to be like me. There are a lot of people that do that. People who tell me on the street without knowing me that they hope I get better, that they hope I'm cured. Especially when I was little. I grew up a lot with the idea of, well, hopefully one day you'll be better. And that hopefully one day you'll be better means they see you as unwell. They perceive you as a person who is not okay. And honestly, for me, my most revolutionary message, if you want to call it that, is that it's really great to be like me. The truth is, I wish things were easier sometimes. But it's the environment that makes it very difficult. Not the fact that I have this condition. Of course, there are days when my whole body hurts, and I wish that wouldn't happen. But the environment is what really makes things hard. My goal is for that to change. But first, people and the community need to understand that lives of people with disabilities are not terrible or tragic. What makes life terrible or tragic are the things people say to us and the things they do, like excluding us. And I think the way to achieve that is through education and teaching. There's no other way. For me, standing in front of the classroom, facing my students, is also a way of showing them that my life is not a tragedy, that my life is not terrible. And that everyone has the right to be accepted just as we are, no matter how we look or what we can do, simply because we are human beings.
Absolutely incredible. I see a strong woman who is a teacher, broadcaster on radio and television, a writer who wrote a book. I've been dreaming about writing a book all my life. You did it. And you are educating not just in school, you are educating on the community level. You're an activist, you are changing the world. You are a leader who is bringing positive change. And that's why I'm so incredibly grateful and also excited to talk to you, because where do you get strength, motivation? And, this is the story of resilience. Not so many people can do what you're doing. Really, not so many people can do what you're doing. What helps you to be as strong as you are, and also what drives you?
I do the things I wish I had seen when I was a child. When I was little, I saw a lot of unfairness, and obviously, I didn't have the information to change things yet. I also believe that we are all born with a purpose. Even though it's not something I talk about publicly, because my beliefs are more private and I'm a bit more reserved. I do believe we are born with a purpose. I knew as a little girl that I had this purpose. I was always convinced of it. In fact, I've always been deeply involved with art. And I believe that art, in all of its forms, is a powerful way to express many things that happen inside me. The book has been a good way, a strong support to share a lot of things I needed to tell, things I needed to say. The strength lies in that little girl. The strength is in seeing the children, in wanting them to grow up in a better world than the one I had. I'm convinced that I won't be able to do this alone. On this path, I'm going to find allies who understand the need for change. And together, we're gaining strength. But I believe the real strength lies in seeing change in childhood. That part has always meant a lot to me. And now I see it taking shape in my nieces and nephews. I don't have children of my own, but I see it becoming real in the children close to my family, which really motivates me. Even if they don't have a disability, I want them to grow up in a kinder world, one that embraces all kinds of diversity. And I want them to know we're here. Sometimes just showing up and being seen can have a different kind of impact. When I used to work in a preschool, The children were always very curious when they saw me. I remember one little boy would say, "The teacher is as tall as me." We were the same height. And that was a great opportunity to talk about bodies, to talk about physical diversity. Maybe if someone like me hadn't been there, they wouldn't have talked about bodies at all. They would have moved on from preschool to the next grade, thinking that all teachers are the same, have the same height. And I believe those are important battles to fight. For me, the strength lies in the children.
Could you please tell us about your book, how you started, the concept of the book? And to me, again, this is the way to learn from you, because I look at you as a leader. And once you tell us about the book, my follow-up question is going to be, in your opinion, what qualities today's leaders need to have? But let's start with your book.
I started writing it during the pandemic, during the lockdown in 2020. At least here in Argentina, we were all very confined, with a lot of time on our hands, a computer nearby, and internet access. I joined a writing workshop and started showing the teachers some things I had already written, kind of like in a personal diary format. In 2019, I had been going through a rehabilitation process at a clinic here in the province of Buenos Aires. That had a deep impact on me. It had a big impact on my life. I spent many hours confined in a hospital doing a rehabilitation for chronic pain. When one enters a chronic pain rehab program, that takes up so many hours. It also meant leaving a lot behind. My daily routine, my job. I used to work at night, so I spent my days in that hospital. It made me question a lot of things about life. And in a way, writing became a way to process all of that. And there are things I really like to go through with humor. Even the things that hurt, I tend to laugh a lot about them too, because that's also my way of going through them and making them a little lighter. So I started writing about the rehabilitation process. And when I finished writing about it, my teacher said, "Now start digging into your childhood." Because everything that's coming up in this story, in this personal journal, is without a doubt connected to your childhood. So then I began to explore my childhood, my personal history, my family history. And that's when Curvaturas emerged. That's when it was born.
Incredible. Again, just shows your strength and resilience, because there are so many people that would give up. And again, you took that pandemic experience, then chronic pain, rehab, and then came the pain of the childhood, and then you turn it into a book. And again, people like me can look at you and think something to learn from, something to admire. And again, to me, you're the leader of the community that I can only wish I could leader to follow, I'm going to say, and leader to learn from. And let's talk about the qualities that leaders should have in today's world and today's society. In your opinion, what is crucial for the leader what qualities to embrace?
It's difficult. It's a complicated title. It's a title that I'm not sure I could really identify with. I think anyone who wants to embrace a cause, to embody a cause, has to believe in the collective, has to believe in community. They have to believe in the idea that we can't save ourselves alone. That the idea of the individual doesn't help us at all. The truth is that I had the possibility to overcome my adversities thanks to my family, my mom and my dad, and my group of friends. My friends have been my fundamental support. My childhood friends that I still have today. My mom, my dad, my brother. I was lucky to have them. And because of them, I was able to get through every difficult moment. It's not all sunshine and roses. Sometimes there are situations you want to go one way and they don't work out. And you get through them thanks to family. The truth is, I could have stayed comfortable in that situation. I overcame things thanks to my family, and that could have been it. Just staying home and carrying on with my life. But to me, it feels like you become complicit in injustice if you don't do anything to change it. And as I said before, ever since I was very young, I knew that one of my goals, one way or another, was to speak out against the things that were wrong. The truth is, it brought me a lot of frustration. It brought me a lot of stress, and above all, a lot of exhaustion. Sometimes embracing certain causes wears you down, especially when people don't understand them. How can they not understand that this needs to change? Actually, well, in recent years, I've become more involved in the political environment, not out of the desire of power or to hold positions or even to take up space, but out of the need for things to change. Of course, I have my own ideology. I'm not saying I'm naive, but it's really about the urgency to change. I believe that anyone who wants to be a leader, who wants to lead a cause, has to understand something fundamental. Our stories are not just ours, they're also the stories of others. I also think there are many people who don't have the chance to raise their voices for their cause. I always thought I wanted to be a radio announcer, to work in radio and be tucked away in a studio. But the truth is, today I'm not doing anything close to what I imagined back then. But broadcasting has only been a means to teach me how to speak better, basically. And that taught me to express myself better, to defend myself better with words. And thanks to that, there are so many things I can now say in a more thoughtful and articulate way. And not just stay at home doing my own thing, which in my case seems selfish. I don't think it's a path for everyone because it comes with a lot of consequences. But every time I say, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm walking away, quitting everything, something new always shows up that reignites that spark and pushes me to raise my voice again.
Incredible story, and very motivational and inspirational, I'm sure, not just for me, but for a lot of our listeners. And some of them are leaders. And what I always say, that I wanted to create this podcast that different communities and leaders of the communities can learn from each other, and there is a lot we can learn from you, because again, you took your personal story, you took your personal pain, then you put it into education, and we agree on the fact that education is the way to change the society, and you did that and you keep doing that. I absolutely agree with you that we should celebrate diversity, because everybody is different, and we should celebrate that difference. The fact that my country doesn't want to see diversity as the way of living is sad to me. And when I talk to you today, it just proves the fact that diversity is a celebration of life. And each story and each person here has a purpose. And again, your story is the proof of the fact that the purpose can be anything, because again, every single part of your life that I'm seeing here, you don't waste a minute. You are in pain, you are in rehab, you write a book, and we can learn from this. Again, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for all the work that you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you. If there is one message that you would like our communities, our listeners to take from our conversation today, what that message would be?
I truly believe that we all have a purpose, like I said earlier. And I think it's essential that each one of us do what we can within our own possibilities. We shouldn't place huge expectations on ourselves, like thinking we're going to change the world. I also say that to myself as a reminder, because sometimes I get frustrated when there's, sometimes a desire to push for a new law, to drive a change in public policy, or to transform a specific situation. When those big goals don't happen, it can be really disheartening. But I think there are smaller things we do every day. Like when someone listens to you, when someone learns something from you, when you share your story and your work with someone. I believe that's the true calling of an activist. That's the calling of a leader. I always say something like, I believe we don't have to be the activists or of great heroic acts. We don't need to accomplish grand feats, because those ideals of activisms later on, we pay with our bodies, with our mental health. And in the end, the cost is too high. So maybe the goals are smaller, but firm. I think that especially true when it comes to disability, when there's often a lot of resistance to certain changes, especially here in Argentina, where sometimes In some cases, in certain people, there's still a strong resistance to truly seeing what someone else is going through. That's why I believe in short-term, small, but steady goals. From there, we can set daily goals if we want, or within a short time frame. And we can do more. Because sometimes I wake up thinking, I want to change the world, but maybe that day the world doesn't feel like being changed. I know I can't do it alone. I can't change the destiny of millions of people. That's why I believe in smaller goals, but also about thinking of others, seeing other people as stories too. Stories that are not my own. No one has the right to judge someone else. No one, not even the cruelest, not even those who have done terrible things. No one has the right to judge another person. I think that when we truly understand that, and I mean, even I don't even always practice it, but when we begin to understand that we don't need to judge others, I think a big part of our work will already be done. I insist. I don't think I'll be alive to see it, but at least we tried.
Thank you very much. Those very kind words. And I learned from you today. I learned to take a look at the concept of being inclusive differently. I never thought about the way that you put it together today. So thank you for that. Because again, we keep talking about diversity, inclusion. You gave me completely different view on it. So yes, we are here. We are all here today in this world. So we are already included. So thank you for this. That's new way for me to take a look. And again, I'm going to say that we are going to provide in your contact information to all our listeners in case if anybody would like to get in touch with you and collaborate on all the wonderful work that you do, because we do need that, and we do need to continue working on the education in your field, because the more we know, the more the world will change, and the more it will be beautiful with all the differences that we bring. So thank you very much for all you do. Thank you for tuning in into Connected Conversation. We truly value your feedback and would love to hear from you. Please let us know what story you would like to hear next. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's continue to inspire each other. Let's stay in touch. Thank you.